afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Chevy Chase at Home speaker series. My name is Susan Hamburger. I am a long-time member, volunteer, and board member of the Village in Chevy Chase, Maryland. As you know, we're a neighborhood organization providing social and educational programs to our community. Our caring volunteers provide wonderful rides, errands, tech support, friendly visits, and household assistance to our members. If you would like to know more about Chevy Chase at Home, we will have our website and contact information in the chat. I'd now like to introduce you to our speaker. Chris Palmer is an author, a speaker, a wildlife filmmaker, an educator, professor, and grandfather, which means husband, father first, I guess. He dedicated his professional career to conservation, but now devotes his life to advocating for reform in aging, death, and dying. He's about to publish his 10th book, which is called Achieving a Good Death, a Practical Guide to the End of Life, which will be published in October. He serves on the board of 6 nonprofits, most of them devoted to aging and end-of-life issues. He has done wildlife filming for primetime television and for the IMAX film industry. And he's won two Emmys and nominated for an Oscar. I think you're the first one we've had here that has that skill, or that background. All proceeds of Chris's book go to scholarships for AU students. He was a professor at AU for quite a while and founded the Center for Environmental Filming in the School of Communication. Retired in 2018. He has a mission statement for himself. It's many pages long, and I'm sure you'll hear about a mission statement every day. Listen to this. He does juggling, playing the piano, standing on his head, and I forgot some of the other things we talked about, Chris, but it's amazing. I don't know how you get through the day if you've done all these things. Anyway, I'm delighted to welcome Chris. I think you'll find him a very entertaining and informative speaker. Go ahead, Chris. Thanks.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you so much, and welcome to everybody. It's great to be here with you. And a big thank you to Susan and Deborah and Kristen, all who work at Chevy Chase at Home, a great organization. I encourage you to get a paper and pencil, so you can, and when you think of a question, you can jot it down before you forget it. So I encourage you to have paper and pencil handy, just so you can make notes of questions you have. And as Susan said, please put questions in the chat as much as you want. I welcome questions. Okay, so let me start by saying a year or two back, my wife Gail and I were having dinner with some friends, a couple about our age. I'm 76. And I asked them what their plans were for their as they aged and as they came to the end of their lives. And the man replied, quote, "We don't like to talk about it. It's depressing," end quote. Now, it's easy for someone like me to scoff at that attitude, but I actually can identify with it. All my life, I have been fearful and scared of death and dying, and I'm frightened for two obvious reasons. The first, the suffering of the dying process. I'm thinking here of the possibility of severe pain, difficulty breathing, anxiety, nausea, dementia, regrets, and so on. Dying can be rough, as you all know. Isaac Asimov, the sci-fi writer, said, quote, "Life is pleasant, death is peaceful. It's the transition that's troublesome," end quote. Now, the second reason I'm frightened is because of death itself. The way I see it, I'll no longer exist, and all my projects and relationships will end. If you're religious, as I know many of you are, you may feel differently about death, but most of us, secular or religious, find death scary. As I confronted my fear of death and dying, I talked with hospice nurses at Montgomery Hospice, where I volunteer. Uh, and I learned from them that achieving a good death is more likely if a person lives well. And that's what I want to talk about today, living well to die well. But what does living well mean? And what does to die well mean? Let's start with dying well. Everyone has their own unique notion of what constitutes a good death, influenced by age, culture, religion, and life circumstances. However, there are core elements of a good death common to most people. For most people, a good death is gentle, peaceful, free of pain and suffering, and full of grace and dignity. To die well means to die with few regrets, with a sense of closure and little trauma for those who love us and witness our last days. Loved ones surround the dying person who has a chance to say goodbye and thank you and hear from those present how much the dying person's life meant to them. The room is full of joyful, loving exchanges, tenderness, gratitude, perhaps even joyful reconciliations and shared memories of a life well lived. My parents and three brothers all died with none of these elements. They all died in great pain. And that is the cause of great sadness for me. So, okay, we've briefly discussed what dying well means, but what about living well? What does living well mean? A person lives well if they pursue a life of meaning and purpose. People living well overcome setbacks and failures, stay focused on their goals, and have warm, trusting relationships with others. Living well has little to do, as you all know, with wealth or fame or possessions, and much more to do with focusing on what matters. How do we achieve living well? How do we achieve it? Three things. Three things. First, we need a vision that describes our values and what matters to us. As you all know, Proverbs says, where there is no vision, the people perish. And I agree with that. Second, so first we need a vision. Second, we need goals rooted in that vision. And third, we need to act on those goals to achieve them. So vision, goals, action, they're all interconnected. They are like the three legs of a stool. We need all three. Now, how do you capture a vision? A vision is best captured in and you heard Susan mention this, captured in a personal mission statement. A personal mission statement describes what matters to you, your values, the kind of person you want to be, the identity you want to have, and what you'd like to accomplish. Here is mine. And in fact, I will send this to you afterwards via Kristen, so you can. It's because some of you may be saying to yourself, "Well, what's a personal mission statement? What's it look like?" And so I'll give you mine, and you can use it as a template if you want to, but or you just ignore it. But I'll send it to you so you have a sense of what one might look like. So, and it's wise to write one. It's wise to write one, even in the last few years of your life. Now, my personal mission statement is my constitution, like the Constitution is to America. It's what guides me. It's my true north. And as I said, I will send it to Kristen so she can send it on to all of you this afternoon or this evening. Now, how do you create a personal mission statement? Well, here's one way to create a personal mission statement. Imagine you are entering a big building. You open the heavy wood doors, you look inside, and there are 100 or 200 people there, all with their backs to you, and you wonder what's going on. You crane your head over their shoulders, and you see what they're looking at. It's a casket, and you realize you're at a funeral. And just at that moment, getting up to give a eulogy is someone you recognize. And you recognize them very easily because they're someone who loves you and you love them. You know them very well. They know you intimately. And they're about to give a eulogy. And you realize with fascination that you are witnessing your own funeral. Now, for any of you who get upset about death and dying, then just imagine what I've said is this person is getting up to give a toast to you on your 90th birthday. Same kind of thing. Okay, so the question is, what do you want to hear said about? What do you want to hear said about you? What do you want this eulogist who knows you intimately to say about you? And I want you to assume as you're thinking about this that you've led an honorable and successful life. You've led an excellent life, the life you want to lead. So what are the assessments you would like the eulogist to make about you? What character traits and behaviors would you like the person to praise and be grateful for? What have you accomplished? Were you compassionate, kind, and generous? What kind of friend or family member were you? Did you have integrity? Your answers will give you a first draft of your personal mission statement. And I invite you to try this tonight. This personal mission statement is never final. Because you continually improve it. I probably change mine every few days. I go in and edit or add things to it and so on. So this statement is never final because you continually improve it. It's always a work in progress, just like each of us is a work in progress. Having a vision for your life and articulating it in a personal mission statement will help you live a purposeful life full of meaning, thus increasing your chances of having a good dying experience. Now, we should be ambitious and craft a personal mission statement that excites and inspires us. In doing so, we're shaping ourselves into a generous, wise, and creative person, more likely to make life choices that will help us die well. If we live intentionally with gratitude and focus on what matters most, our lives will likely be more fulfilling and our dying will likely be more peaceful and gentle. Now, I'm going to pause for 1 second and look in the chat just to see if there are any questions. Let's see here.
Teresa, thank you for sharing your personal mission statement.
Oh, yes. Sorry, Susan, you were reading it out. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Teresa. Yes, my pleasure. I hope you enjoy it, and it's yours may look completely different. It doesn't matter, but okay, great. Thank you. Oh yes, and then Deborah has given the website for Chevy Chase at Home, so please take a look at that. Okay, I don't see any other questions here. Now, I want lots of questions, so have a paper and pencil handy. As you think of something, you can ask me anything you like. You can ask me anything you like on any topic. As you think of something, jot it down and then put it in the chat, and I'll pause again in a moment. I welcome questions very, very much. Okay, so let me press on here. So having a personal mission statement is the first leg of the stool. Remember the stool I mentioned? Vision, goals, action, 3 legs of a stool. So vision is the first leg of the stool. The second leg is our goals, which, now this is important, which are rooted in that vision. They're not sort of independent. No, they have to be rooted in that vision. And our goals give our lives meaning and purpose. So important. One way to organize life goals is to group them according to the 4 fundamental dimensions of our nature. So that's physical, social, and emotional. I put those together, social/emotional, mental, and finally spiritual. Let me just touch on those briefly. Physical includes, obviously, exercise, diet, and sleep, moving our bodies daily, eating lots of fruits and vegetables, and getting sound sleep are all critical. Social and emotional, social/emotional. This dimension includes love, friendship, and community. One goal to consider in this area is writing a gratitude letter. This is a heartfelt letter to someone you love, thanking them for their love and caring. You can tell them, you tell them in this letter what they mean to you and what you appreciate about them. Mental, the third dimension, mental. This includes learning, studying, and reading. One goal to consider in this area is writing a memoir. It doesn't have to be lengthy. It would be part of your legacy, a gift to future generations who want to know about your successes, your setbacks, and your struggles. And finally, spiritual. Spiritual. This includes finding a purpose and meaning in our lives and being in touch with something greater than ourselves. By spiritual, I'm not referring to religious faith, although it will include religion for many. Therapists will tell you they see stunning revitalization in people when a newfound purpose comes along. One goal to consider in this area is to keep a gratitude journal, a thoughtful chronicling of the things we are grateful for. Setting challenging goals for ourselves in those four dimensions, physical, social, emotional, mental, and spiritual, is vital because it helps us to find purpose and meaning in our lives. These goals should advance the values and vision in our personal mission statement. This will help us live well, and thus we're more likely to die well. Let me see, there's a question here from Glenn Harper. Glenn says, what was the moment or event that caused you to realize facing death was the best strategy? Well, you know, Glenn, I was just very scared. I never thought about it. It was taboo. I never wanted to think about it. I thought I would live forever. I thought death was something that happened to other people. And when I got to about 65, I began, and I was more conscious of death. I began to think, this is ridiculous. This is not working. This is no way for me to handle this problem. It wasn't the way I'd handled problems in my life in the past. In the past, if I had a problem, I just faced up to it and attacked it. And I thought I need to do the same. I needed to confront death. So it was it wasn't one thing. It was just a growing, dawning with me that I wasn't handling this well. I wasn't handling death and dying well, and I needed to handle it better. And that led me to read about it, investigate it, talk to people about it, and face up to it and confront it. And I'm still in the process of doing that. Glenn, thank you for that question. I thought you were going, as I read your question, I thought you were going to say, what was the moment you realized you needed a personal mission statement? So I'll answer that question too, even though you didn't ask it. I was in my early 20s and very unhappy. Very unhappy. Although on the face of it, you wouldn't think I would be. I was getting degrees, advanced degrees. I was in the British Navy. I was doing well. From the outside, I looked, accomplished and successful and doing well. But inside, I was miserable and depressed and didn't know what my life was about. And it suddenly dawned on me one day that, of course, I didn't know, because I'd never tried to articulate what my life was about. It was obvious. I did, but it hadn't occurred to me until I was in my 20s that I needed to write down with words what I wanted to accomplish in life, what my life was about, what my purpose was. And of course I was unhappy because I hadn't done that. And so I was just drifting with a sort of daily lack of intention. And that lack of intentionality was leading to misery. So that's what led me to create a personal mission statement. Okay, let me go on. Glenn, thanks for that question. So vision is the first leg of the stool. Goals are the second leg, and the third leg is taking action to achieve those goals by being highly productive, action oriented, and skilled at time management. If we do those three things, set a vision, write down our goals, and take action to pursue those goals. If we do those things, we are more likely to have fulfilling relationships in life. On our deathbeds, we are more likely, therefore, to hear our loved ones say to us, "I love you, I will miss you, I will not forget you, and thank you." Hearing these things will help to ease the fear of death and help with grief. I deeply regret never telling my mother and father, who I loved, as they were dying, that I loved them. It wasn't a phrase we used in our family. When my twin brother John died 2 years ago, it was only when I gave his eulogy that I said to him, looking at his casket, "I love you, John." But of course, it was too late. If a person lives well, they are more likely to declutter and death clean their homes. If they are more likely to write an ethical will or a legacy letter. If a person lives well, they're more likely to complete an advance directive and a dementia coda. They're more likely to select a health care agent as part of their advance directive. They are more likely to talk with their loved ones about what they want at the end of life. They're more likely to take advantage of palliative and hospice care. If a person lives well, they're more likely to decide and share with their loved ones what type of medical care they want, so they're less likely to be over medicalized. And they are more likely to decide what kind of memorial service they would like. They're also more likely to have pondered medical aid in dying, voluntarily stopping eating and drinking, VSED, palliative sedation, refusing life-sustaining treatments and other exit strategies as they approach death. So now I've used a number of words there, phrases there, like VSED, medicate and made, that some of you may not be familiar with. So feel free to go to the chat room and ask questions about what some of those words, if you want me to explain them. What I've done is I'm giving you this talk. I've prepared notes which are much more extensive. So my prepared comments, which I will send you through Kristen, my prepared comments are much more extensive and contain definitions of these things. So when you get them from Kristen this afternoon or this evening, you'll be able to read my talk and read definitions of these things. But I can also feel free to ask me right now, and I'll feel free to we can discuss them right now as well. Things like death cleaning and ethical wills, legacy wills, advanced directives, dementia coders, healthcare agents. These are all phrases I've used that some of you may be wondering what they mean. Palliative care, medical aid in dying, voluntarily stopping eating, drinking, VSED, palliative sedation, and so on. I mean, even the term exit strategies. Feel free to ask me about that. Okay, here's one great. Sean writes, "What is a dementia coda?" By the way, Sean, thanks for the question. I want more questions. Please ask me more questions. We don't have enough here. And you can ask me anything about anything. So Sean asked a very good question. What is a dementia coda? So Sean, thank you for asking. A dementia coda is adds to your advance directive. So you may want to ask me what an advance directive is, and maybe I'll come to that in a minute. Okay, but a dementia coda is a document that explains how you want to be treated if you have advanced dementia. So dementia, as you know, is an eviscerating, emasculating, awful disease. And it can last 10, 12, 14 years. It's glacial and awful, and people gradually lose who they are and don't recognize their loved ones. And you all know the terrible, terrible symptoms So a dementia coda. And so the disease, as you know, goes from, you have a mild dementia, and then it's a middling, and then you end up with advanced dementia. You still may have 2 years to live, even with advanced dementia. It's sort of terminal, but not necessarily within 6 months. Anyway, the dementia coda says that what it basically says this: when I have mild dementia, then I want to be treated in this way. And usually people say, keep me alive. And with mild dementia, keep me alive. If I get an infection, like pneumonia, give me an antibiotic. And then it goes on, the dementia code goes on to say, now, once I have middling, once I have dementia, which is sort of halfway between mild and advanced, then please be a little more careful, and please be more careful how you treat me. I don't want to be over medicalized. If I'm in discomfort, comfort me, but just don't necessarily go all the way out to save me if my heart stops, And then an advanced directive. Now here, you have the right to say, if you have advanced dementia in your dementia coda, you have the right to say, do everything you can to keep me alive. And some people do that, and they have every right to do that. But many of us will say, if I have advanced dementia, if I don't recognize anybody of any of my loved ones, my grandchildren, if my quality of life has degraded to such a degree that I'm not happy, not enjoy, that I don't have any quality of life, then please, if I get pneumonia, let me go. Don't give me an antibiotic. Don't give me a peg feed if I can no longer feed myself. Peg feed is a feed through the stomach wall. The food goes right into your stomach. Don't put me on a ventilator. Don't give me a CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Let me die naturally. You may want in your dementia coda to say these things. Now, this is important because the way the doctors, your healthcare agent, the person talking for you when you can no longer talk for yourself, know what you want and can help you get what you want. So that's what a dementia coda is. And for those of you who may not be familiar, advanced directive, which I've mentioned, is simply a document which describes how you want to be treated at the end of your life. Of course, if you can still talk for yourself, like the Dowager of Grantham could in Downton Abbey, if you can still talk for yourself near the end of death, you can talk for yourself. You only need an advanced directive really when you can no longer talk for yourself, which happens to a lot of people. So everyone needs to complete an advanced directive. And by the way, only 40% of people have advanced directives, which is terrible. And in the community of color, 20%, which is even worse. So we need to complete our advanced directives. Now, Susan Hamburger says, aside from
the next one.
What's that?
The next one. That was a mistake.
Oh, that was a mistake. Okay, so got it. So Susan says, I live with the thoughts that aging happens in my body, but old is in my head. It seems like you might also. Susan, what an interesting question. I live with the thoughts that aging happens in my body, but old is in my head. Yeah. One of the findings of research from Professor Becca Levy, Levy, is that if you think you're old, if you think of old as a dangerous, miserable time in your life, then you are more likely to shorten your health span. 7.5 years, she's calculated it. So you want to develop in your own head a sense of aging in a positive way if you can. Aging does happen in the body, but old is in my head. Yeah. I'm not sure I fully understand what you mean, Susan, but yeah, aging happens in the body, but old is in my head. Yeah. I think what you're getting is old is a kind of almost like a mood or an approach when you think of yourself as decrepit and nearing death. Yeah,
And
because
it's inhibiting if you think you're old and you don't try new things.
Right. So you can have an aging body. You may not be able to run so fast. You may not be able to play tennis, but you can think of yourself as young still, even with that. So your aging could happen in your body, but you can still think of yourself as young, a young in a young old age. You're still cognitively very alert. So yeah, that's a good point. Thank you, Susan. Susan. Let me go back to Sean for a minute. Sean, did I answer your question adequately on what is a dementia coda? If I didn't, just let me know. Oh, by the way, I see. Oh, good, good. Thank you, thank you. By the way, I see Susan Flanders there. Susan, so nice to see you. Welcome. Susan is an Episcopalian priest and very interested in end of life issues. She's a new friend of mine, um, and uh, and I'm delighted, Susan. I'm delighted you're here. Let me go back to the chat room. So Zeev Lahat says, can you talk a little bit about your volunteering work at at the hospice, Montgomery Hospice? What made you decide on volunteering there? Well, Zeev, this was part of my effort to confront death. It was part of my sort of self-improvement to trying to confront death and face up to it, not be so scared of it. I'm on the board of Montgomery Hospice. I'm very active there, and so I went through the training. It's 3 days of training to become a hospice volunteer. It's a wonderful experience, and I love it. I go and spend time with people to accompany them, to give them companionship as they're dying. Um, as they're as they're in our hospice care. It's a very fulfilling life. What made me decide to do it was I thought it'd be good for me, a good thing for me to do, a healthy thing for me to do, an important thing for me to do. So Zeev, I hope I've answered that question. Let me know if I haven't. All righty. So there's a great question. Thanks, everybody. Keep asking questions. It is 1:35. We have 25 minutes left. We've got plenty of time for discussion. So there's some other things I mentioned here. Death cleaning. Everybody know what that is? That's when you declutter your house so you don't leave your house in a mess for your children to have to clean up. Ethical wills, I mentioned that. Ethical will is a legacy letter is where you write a letter to your loved ones, to your people who are going to survive you, telling them what your values are, how you hope they will live their lives, what you've learned from your own life lessons, things like that. It's a wonderful thing to do. Advanced directive, we've talked about, a dementia coda, a healthcare agent, that's very important. You want to find somebody. It's amazing how many people don't do this, but you really need to find somebody who can talk for you. It doesn't necessarily have to be your family. It could be somebody. I mean, you need somebody with backbone, somebody who will stand up to doctors who say, "Oh no, we've got to give you more treatment. We've got to, give you hip replacements, even though you're 95 and near death." You need someone with backbone who can say that's not what they want. I talked to them. I've got their dementia. I've got their advanced directive here, and I talked to them before they lost consciousness, before they became comatose, and they do not want to be over medical. You need to be someone who's got some nerve and can stand up to doctors who can be arrogant and imperious. Many of them are not, but they can be, and you need to have a healthcare agent who's willing to stand up for what you want. Okay, so healthcare agent. Palliative care, I think you all know what that is. That's very important. As soon as you get as soon as you get a diagnosis for an illness, you should ask for palliative care. Almost all hospitals have it, and they work side by side with your curative doctors, with your doctors who are trying to cure your disease. But the palliative care doctors help with your symptoms, help with your family. They treat your whole person. It's a very gentle, specialized medical care focused on relieving symptoms and stress. Okay, medical aid in dying, MAID, M-A-I-D, medical aid in dying, just failed in Maryland by one vote. Is very sad. I support it. Some of you may not. It's a fraught, complicated issue, and you have every right to oppose it if you do oppose it. I mean, it's a very very individual thing. I support it because I think people need to have choices and options at the end of life, beyond just being beyond just accepting what normally happens in a hospital. Um, uh, uh, being kept alive with life-sustaining treatments that can be very, very draining and miserable. Meditating dying allows you, if you meet the criteria, you have to be within 6 months of dying. You have to be mentally capable and competent to, you have to have decision-making capacity. If you meet these criteria, you can go to a doctor who's willing, and they have to be willing to, and get a fatal dose of drugs. I mean, be given drugs which will kill you, and you have to self-administer them. This is not euthanasia. This is not suicide. You have to self-administer them. I say it's not suicide. In a sense, it is, but it's not, because suicide, I think of as for a young person with a whole life in front of them who no longer wants to live and is very, depressed, unhappy. We, in meditating dying, we're talking about people who are older, who are near death, who are facing death anyway, who are going to die anyway, and they just simply want to make a decision about they want to die in a more comfortable way and hasten their death because their quality of life is gone and they've had enough. So anyway, meditating dying, voluntarily stopping eating and drinking, or VSED, another very important exit strategy. This is legal everywhere, and anybody can do it. You don't have to get permission. If you're in a hospice, it's good to be in a hospice with voluntarily stopping eating and drinking. It's good to have a hospice that supports you. So before going into hospice, you need to ask them, if I decide to do VSED, if I decide to stop eating and drinking to hasten my death, will you support me to make sure that the hospice is in tune with your own values? All right, so, and palliative sedation, as most of you will know, used to be called barbiturate sedation. Palliative sedation or terminal sedation is where you're suffering in great pain and a doctor sedates you, and so eases the pain, and usually it hastens death. Okay, so a person, let me look for a second in the chat. Okay, I answered that question. Martha, is the dementia coda a page you yourself write and attach to your advance directive, or is there an official document for this? Martha, thank you for that excellent question. And here's the best thing to do. Go to Compassion and Choices. The email address is cnc.org. cnc.org. Kristen, you might put that in the chat room, please. CNC, Compassion Choices, CNC.org, and just you'll find it right away. And there's a whole section there on how to prepare a dementia code. I've looked at many dementia codes, and this is, in my opinion, the best. So go to Compassion and Choices website, look for their guidance on dementia coda. You'll see, and that will write it for you. Just answer questions as you do it, and at the end of it, you'll have a dementia coda that you can give to your loved ones and your doctor, and so on. So, Martha, I hope I've answered that question. Susan Flanders, Susan, great to hear from you. How does a person Oh, this is a direct message. So sorry, this is just to me. How does a person with advanced dementia exercise VSED, voluntary stopping drinking, even if specified in advance, if he can still feed himself? Susan, that is a superb question, a thoughtful question. And if you have advanced dementia, it's very hard to exercise VSED, very hard to stop eating and drinking. And some people make a video when they have mild dementia, saying to their doctors what they want to, their loved ones what they want, so to help to get help at that stage when they have advanced dementia. But this is a very interesting question, because one thing that's been on my mind recently is that the trouble with dementia is, and medical aid in dying, is if you have dementia, you can't use medical aid in dying, because if you by the time you get to the 6 months of dying, which you need to do for medical aid in dying, then you have advanced dementia, and you no longer have decision-making capacity. Therefore, medical aid in dying is no longer available to you. But one question I've been asking myself is, could a patient take VSED, start VSED, voluntary stopping eating and drinking, and therefore bring themselves to be within 6 months of dying, therefore qualify for hospice and medical aid in dying. So that's a question when Susan, you and I are going to meet for lunch, for coffee soon, and we can discuss that more. But your question, how does a person with advanced dementia exercise VSED, even as spasm in advance, he can still feed himself? That's very, very tricky. Very tricky. Yeah. Okay, so Glenn,
Chris, there's another comment from Glenn Harper where he
yes.
said, aging and dying is a process in which one loses one choice after another. Shouldn't they be afforded one last choice?
Yeah. Yeah. Glenn, good point. And Susan, good point. The trouble is when you have advanced dementia, if you said earlier on you want VSED, you may not be you may no longer have the ability to, or the persistence, the grit, the pluck to implement VSED, when you've got advanced dementia, because you become a different person. Is a MOHS, MOHS, the same as dementia coda, asks Marjorie Thompson. So Marjorie, you say MOHS, MOHS, but I think you may mean MOLST, MOLST, medical, medical, life, medical, MOLST. It's the same as pulse, but you may not. You may mean MOHS. There is a surgery called MOHS. So, but it's not. Anyway, either way, MOLST and pulse is not the same as dementia coda. But MOLST is a medical directive. Has to be signed by a doctor, which says if you want DNR, do not resuscitate, or it says how you want to be treated. It's important. It supplements your advanced directive, and it's important because it's signed by a doctor. An emergency room is more likely. Well, I should say they will pay attention to it in a way that occasionally they won't pay attention to an advanced directive, sadly. Although there are lawsuits now going on where people have ignored the advanced directive, and hospitals are being sued for unlawfully extending life when they shouldn't have done, because the person has said, do not extend my life. I want to die naturally. So Marjorie, sorry, did you mean MOLST, MOLST, when you said MOHS? Anyway, you'll let me know. I'll keep reading. Susan Hamburg, yes, Compassion and Choices, wonderful organization. And then Susan Flanders says again, it seems sedation would be the only way. It seems sedation would be the only way. Yes, I think you're right. Perhaps sedation may be the only way at that late stage. And of course, the doctor will only do that if you're in great pain and suffering terribly. All right, these are great questions. Now let me just say a bit more. It's 1:46, so we have 15 minutes left. I want to say that a person who lives well and intentionally, with intention, is also more likely to plan to dispose of their body responsibly and in line with their values. In other words, whether to have a conventional funeral with embalming, or flame cremation with all their associated pollution and waste, or look at greener alternatives like green burial or water cremation, alkaline hydrolysis, or human composting, also known as natural organic reduction. And just as an FYI, my wife Gail and I have chosen a green burial at Reflection Park, which is a new green burial ground opening within the next 6 months or so. Because this option for us, reflects our appreciation and reverence for the natural world. I spent most of my career before I got into death and dying as in promoting environmental protection. So it makes sense for someone like me to have a green burial. Environmentally, green burial or natural earth burial is the gold standard. It has a much smaller carbon footprint than conventional burials, embalming, and flame cremation. All right, I'm going to look at the Now, what we're going to do now, we have about 12 minutes left. I'm going to look at the chat for questions. I'm going to invite anybody to unmute and ask a question if they want to do that. This is the last chance to ask questions. Last chance, so you can do it in the chat or by putting up your hand. You know how to do that. You go down to I think it's react, is it? No, it's go down to I forget. You go down to the bottom and you press a button, and you can react. You can you can then ask a question. Your hand goes up. Raise hand. Yeah, raise hand. It says raise hand. Okay. So but let me just say, I do have handouts for you. I will send them to Kristen this afternoon, and Kristen will send them to all of you. I'm going to give you my prepared remarks today because they contain much more than I've had time to say. What I have to say orally contains definitions of things, websites, and so on. So I'll send you my presentation today. I'll send you my personal mission statement, just so you have a sense of what one looks like. Yours may look completely different. I'll send you a document, a handout I have called 50 Ways to Improve Your Life, which I think you'll find very helpful. So I'll send you those through Kristen. But I also want to tell you on my website, there are lots of free handouts that you can get. You can just help yourself to. My website, and Kristen, would you mind putting this in the chat, please? My website is www.chrispalmeronline.com. chrispalmeronline.com. If you go there, you'll easily find all sorts of handouts on funeral planning, on advanced care planning, on hospice care, legacy letters, how to write an ethical will, green burial, decluttering, how to age well, how to write a memoir, blah, blah, blah. Lots of things. Also examples of letters I've written to my family about how I want to die, and so on. So I think you'll find that very, very helpful, those handouts. And look out for the handouts from Kristen this afternoon or this evening or whenever she is able to get them out. Kristen, thank you in advance for sending out those handouts. Okay, so let me now look in the chat, and then I'll look to see if anybody has their hand up. So let's see.
People are asking, what is a green burial and what is water cremation?
Okay, so we're running out of time, so I'm going to be quick here. A green burial is where you don't use embalming. You use a biodegradable casket. You do not use a cement vault as they do in the conventional burials. So it involves a huge saving of formaldehyde, wood, cement, and so on. It's very simple. It's the traditional. It's the way we traditionally buried people before the Civil War. They would simply wash the body and put them in a box and in a coffin and take them and bury them in the local cemetery or on the family property. So green burial is very simple. You can even just be wrapped in a shroud and put in the ground about 3.5 feet down where there's more microbial activity. Stephen Taro, please repeat the name of the green cemetery that you mentioned. Yeah, Reflection Park. It's very good, run by a friend of mine. So what is green burial? So I hope I've answered that. What is water cremation? So water cremation, also known as alkaline hydrolysis, this is where the body is put in a capsule surrounded by 95% water, 5% alkali. It's heated very gently. There are two types. So I won't get into that detail. And within about in a matter of 6 hours, or depends which process, 14 hours, the body is reduced to ashes. The bones are then crushed with a cremulator, as in flame cremation, and then you have ashes, like you do from flame cremation, but it's water cremation. Whoa, I just lost all of you. Hang on. Oh, there you go. Sorry, I just lost all of you. So it's water. So so that's water cremation. And again, you can find more about that if you go to my website, look for the handout on funeral cremation. You'll find much more detail about water cremation. Carol says, I can't find the dementia coda. Where do I look? Okay, go to the Compassion and Choices website. Compassion and Choices website. That's cnc.org, but just Google Compassion Choices. Go on their website and look for Dementia Coder. Just search for Dementia Coder. You'll very quickly find it. And so good luck with that. Carol, let me give you my website. If you can't find it, here's my email address. Just email me. And Kristen, would you put my email address in the website, please, in the chat room? Christopher.n.palmer@gmail.com. Christopher.n.palmer@gmail.com. Some of you may have questions that you don't want to ask in public. Feel free to write to me privately with any questions you have. I'll do my utmost to help you. And Susan, and Carol, I mean, if you can't find the Dementia Coder, just email me and I will do that. Kristen, did you put my website? No, I didn't see it yet, but I'm sure you will. Kristen, but if you could put my website up, please, and my email address. Rob Butler says, what is the meaning of life? The meaning of life, Rob, is to have thriving relationships, to have meaning and purpose. It's to have goals and projects that provide your life with meaning. Life is not intrinsically meaning. We have to create meaning ourselves. So the meaning of life is in your hands to create, exciting, inspiring goals. And the best thing is goals which help other people. And then have lots of friendships with people, behave virtuously, have integrity, and the meaning of life is found in that, living with intentionality. Okay, Marjorie,
Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're so welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, good question, Marjorie. How arranged to donate bodies to medical science? Again, go to my funeral planning handout. You'll find all the details in there. Just Google this for Maryland, and they will come and pick up the body. It's a very good way, very good thing to do. Very good thing to do, and I encourage you to do that. And then Kristen says, I'll be sure to email everyone the materials that Chris is sharing. Thank you, Kristen. And Carol. Oh no, it's Christopher N, not M, but N for Neil Palmer. Christopher, it's an N, not M. Yes, thank you. Okay. Christopher.n.palmer@gmail.com. Very, very good. Very good. And we just need my website up there too. All righty. And so now what's the time? 1:58. We have 5 minutes left. So I've got a peroration. I'm going to end with something I want to say. So this is the last chance for questions. Yes, thank you very much. Thanks very much, Kristen, for putting up my website there. So go to that website and you get lots of handouts you'll find very, very helpful. And as Susan said when she introduced me, I've got a book coming out on October the 1st, from Roman and Littlefield, a big publisher, called Achieving a Good Death, which I think you'll all enjoy. All the proceeds from my books go to fund scholarships. So I get no money from the books I write. Anyway, I hope you'll find that helpful. Okay. Any questions? Anybody want to put their hand up to ask a question? Or Susan, have I answered all the questions in the chat? I hope I have.
Somebody asked about human composting where.
Oh, okay, so human composting has just become legal. Governor Westmore signed the legislation 2 days ago to make both alkaline hydrolysis or water cremation and natural organic reduction or human composting legal. So for the first time, they are legal in Maryland. Now about 10 states have made it legal, which is very exciting. But the downside is, the negatives, we don't have any facilities. Maryland has no facilities for alkaline hydrolysis or water or human composting, but that's going to change. We're going to build them and license them, and it's going to be great. So if you want to use human composting or like Desmond Tutu, Bishop Desmond Tutu did, he disposed of his body through water cremation, alkaline hydrolysis, because of his environmental benefits. If you want to do that, you'll need to have your body transported out of state to a state where they have those facilities. Good. Susan, any other questions I missed?
Nope, I don't think so.
Okay, so it is 3 minutes to 2 o'clock, so I'm just going to finish it with this peroration. Okay, so to sum up, we must live a good life if we want a good death. To lead a good life, we should devote ourselves to building relationships, helping others, and working on meaningful projects and causes. This requires planning, preparation, and intentionality. You can't leave it to chance and live haphazardly, as so many people do. A good life is the foundation for a good death. People tend to die the way they live. As a conservationist and wildlife filmmaker for over 35 years, I made several films about wolves, including an IMAX film, and came to admire these beautiful, beautiful animals. So let me end with the Wolf Credo by the Native American devotes. Respect the elders. Teach the young. Cooperate with the pack. Play when you can. Hunt when you must. Rest in between. Share your affections. Voice your feelings. Leave your mark. Thank you very much. Susan, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chris. It's really an interesting talk. And I thank all of you for joining Chevy Chase at Home. If you'd like more information, please contact our website. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye,
Thanks so much for
everybody.
coming, everybody.
Bye.
Great to see you.